So my job is to work with other state waterfowl biologists up and down the Mississippi River to make sure lots of ducks are coming to Tennessee for hunting. With that, there's a lot of data that we need to collect in the state, and I'm coordinating all of that, getting folks all across the state to band ducks and band geese and report the data correctly, get it to me. I got to compile it, send it to different agencies, the Bird Banding Lab, the Fish and Wildlife Service, to feed the machine that informs population management for ducks.
Awesome.
We banned wood ducks and Canada geese, and a lot of that has to do to inform some of those early seasons we have. We got that September wood duck season because people did the work and banded the birds, and we started shooting them in September because we were like, we're shooting our own birds. We're not shooting Michigan's birds at that time. We're shooting Tennessee birds. And so in order to figure that out, you put bands out on a lot of birds. When people report those bands after they shoot them, you know that those were our birds. And so the banding that we do in the summertime, it's the same thing for the geese. That's why we have September seasons, because we know we're shooting our geese. So that informs hunt management, harvest management. That information also feeds back into what we know about, at the end of the year, what was harvested. It's part of how we get our harvest numbers.
Yeah.
Again, it's just a bunch of data that feeds the information that we need to know to properly manage these populations.
Won't you take me back to Tennessee?
The award-winning Tennessee WildCast is on the air with the latest info about hunting, fishing, boating, wildlife watching, and all things outdoors. This year, we celebrate the men and women of the TWRA responsible for 75 years of wildlife conservation. Now make welcome your host, Jason Harmon.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Tennessee WildCast. We're glad you're tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We got a fun show lined up for you today, and we're in a little bit different setting today. We're on site at Bogota WMA, and Amy Spencer's helping me co-host. Appreciate Amy being with us today. This is her neck of the woods, so
it is.
She's our Region 1 Outreach Communications. I guess it's just communications and marketing now, not outreach. But anyway,
we're doing some outreach today.
Yeah, we are doing some outreach today. So it's fun to be here, and I appreciate Amy helping me co-host. We're at the Waterfowl Festival that's going on today, so that's why we're here. People are enjoying all kinds of fun stuff from seminars to tours. We're doing some podcasts. The Bogota boys were here earlier, and got games for the kids, but it's been a fun day.
It has. Getting ready for the calling contest.
And I'm gonna do a little bit different order right here, because since we're talking about this event, big thanks to Josh Emerson here. He's with us today, and his crew for making this a success. Josh, appreciate all the work y'all done.
Oh, Josh, we owe you so much. You and the crew, A-team all the way, done an amazing job getting this ready to go. Thank
y'all. We've enjoyed hosting everybody today. Had a pretty good turnout.
Yeah. Well, you guys put a lot of work into this property, and it's great to show it off. And we're going to dive into that today, and dive into just waterfowl management. And we got Jamie Feddersen with us today. He's going to be chatting with us. He's our waterfowl coordinator for the agency. Works out of the Nashville office. And appreciate you, Jamie.
Yeah. Thanks for asking me to come on.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Before we get too deep, I want to highlight the WCMT out of Martin, a radio station that carries WildCast. We appreciate our radio partners. We appreciate our TV partners, everybody out there. But throw a shout out to Paul Tinkle, the radio team out there at WCMT in Martin. So appreciate that. All right. Jamie, let's jump in and start with you, buddy. Waterfowl coordinator. What is a waterfowl coordinator?
Yeah, so it's funny. Somebody asked me that yesterday, and I said, "Well, I'm going to tell you the answer, and then you're going to tell me I'm not doing my job." So my job is to work with other state waterfowl biologists up and down the Mississippi River, and some of the provinces in Canada, making sure that we're doing everything we need to do to make sure lots of ducks are coming to Tennessee for hunting. And that's where people are going to say, you ain't been doing your job, because we're not seeing the ducks that we used to. But there's other issues going on there, but that's mainly that's the big part of what I do, is working cooperatively with a lot of other biologists to make sure that everybody is doing the right things when it comes to regulations and hunting with waterfowl. And then with that, there's a lot of data that we need to collect in the state, and that's where I come in. I'm coordinating all of that, getting folks all across the state to band ducks and band geese, and report the data correctly, get it to me. I got to compile it, send it to different agencies, the bird banding lab, the Fish and Wildlife Service, different reports that they need to write. So it's just making sure collectively we're getting all of the data that we need to feed the machine that informs population management for ducks.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's important that we share that today, because that's cool that you work not just in the state but outside. Yeah, all those partners you're communicating with and make sure seasons are jiving and biology is working together. So that's awesome. How long have you been doing this?
So, I've been doing this job for 23 years. I spent 15 years in Florida as a waterfowl biologist. And then in 2016, I came to Tennessee. So I've been here for a little over 8 years, and it's been great. It's been a really good experience, and just, there's a lot of work that's been done, a lot of work to keep on doing.
And one last thing, have you always been interested in waterfowl? Has that been your background?
Yeah, that's the only job I've ever done. It's what I went to school for. Really, I've been a bird guy all my life, and it wasn't until I was a junior in college and I took waterfowl management, and I said, that's what I want to do. Yeah. That is it. And that's all I ever wanted to do. And somehow, luckily, it's what I've been able to do. So I've been pretty darn fortunate to do exactly what I wanted to do coming out of school.
Awesome.
Been real fortunate.
That's cool. Yeah, a lot of people that work for the agency say, I get to make money doing this. This is cool. Get to make a living.
I've heard that a lot of times. Like, I can't believe they pay me to do this.
Yeah. So that's great. Well, Josh, thank you for today. Thank you for what your crew's done here today. But share with the folks listening and watching here what you do, what your role is here at Bogota.
Okay. So I'm Josh Emerson, the WMA manager. I started my career with, I'll give my background first.
Sure, yeah.
I started my career with TWRA in 2012 as a forestry technician planting trees in our forestry restoration program.
Okay.
I've done that for almost 5 years. In 2016, I was hired as the assistant manager over the LOWC complex, which is where we are here today at Bogota. And I worked as the assistant manager until 2019 when I promoted to the manager too. But we've been busy this year. We've been getting ready for this.
I bet.
We've been spraying. We've been fighting the weather, which we're farmers.
Yeah.
We've got some really good looking moist soils, and that was on one of the stops on the tour today. We've been planting corn. We've been fighting the rain, fighting the bugs, fighting the weeds. We were able to get everything sprayed and fertilized this week, finally. We hadn't really had a dry week since we planted our corn. We've got all our sunflowers in. We've been really busy cleaning up for this meeting.
Hey, Josh.
Yeah.
Josh, you called. You said you're on the LOWC. For those who don't know what that is, what is that?
So the LOWC is the Lower Obion Wetland Complex. It's consisted of 6 areas. We start at Tumbleweed WMA in the edge of Lake County.
Okay.
And working our way south, we have Bogota WMA, White Lake Refuge, Thorny Cypress WMA, Ernest Rice WMA, and Moss Island WMA.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions. Thank you, Jay.
Yeah, that's a lot of areas.
I'm right there with you. Expert novice in me. I don't know all those terms but anyway, and I'm going to jump ahead for our notes, because I mean you're getting right into what I wanted to talk about when it comes to waterfowl and habitat management here on the property. You throw out moist soils, and we hear that all the time. Right. And I see that on the tour today. What is moist soils for those who don't understand what that means?
So moist soils we can feed ducks very cheaply.
Okay.
We can, instead of planting corn that this year it's almost $600 an acre for us to put in an acre of corn. Moist soils, we can manipulate water to control what we want. So the later we draw down our water, I usually start pulling water in March, getting corn ground ready, letting things dry out. And then we start playing with it really hard about May, end of April, 1st of May. We try to have most of it gone by May the 15th. And the later, it's not a science. Well, it's a science, but there's no magic trick. I like stuff that's cut and dry.
No magic trick.
I like to be able to open a book and say, do this on this date, and this is the result.
One thing that you run, especially on our WMAs, is a lot of this area stays wet. So it's not prime farmland. It's not what people were wanting to grow crops on. So you have to keep in mind that we hold water in these areas later than anyone else. I was here early June.
Right.
We were doing some tours to get ready for this, and the cornfield still had water sitting on it. But we've also had a very exceptional wet year.
We have. And we hold water a little later than most people for migrating waterfowl as they move back north, and our wading birds and all of this other stuff. There's a lot of reasons that we hold our water longer than the farmers or your typical duck hunter that wants to get rid of it so they can get their crop in. Mm-hmm. We're looking at more of the biological side than they are.
Right.
But back to moist soils, I'm still learning at it, and I'm getting better. I'm getting better.
Yeah,
I am getting better.
It's all good. So let me help out Josh here from
yeah. Sure.
So moist soils are a suite of plants that they grow well and they thrive in moist soil.
Gotcha.
Right. So it's not every single area produces all of the same plants, but it's a suite of plants, and it depends on what the seeds are in the soil. And so in order for those to grow, you kind of have to dry it a little bit, but it doesn't have to get completely dry like you would need for corn. Mm-hmm. Right. So it just needs a little disturbance every once in a while. So you just need to burn it, or you might need to run a disc over it every once in a while. And these plants they're native, natural plants. Things like millets. Everybody's heard of millet, right? Mm-hmm. There's smart weeds. There are nutsedges, foxtail, things like that. So just what they are is they're annual plants that produce a lot of seeds on the seed head. And these seeds, when they mature, they fall out. They're laying on the ground. When the area gets water on it, ducks do what ducks do, and they stick their head in the water and they feed on all these little bitty seeds that are there. And it's just really, like Josh said, it's a cheaper alternative to put a lot of food on the landscape, especially following up with what Amy said. We aren't in prime, there's a reason the state owns these farmlands. It's because they're not great farmlands, right?
We're on the high spot right here, right?
This is the highest point.
So moist soil is a really good alternative to planting a row crop or a hot crop, as we say in the duck world. Mm-hmm. So,
Josh, just to give somebody an example, when you come in off the road, what's the elevation change from the corn that's out front to right now?
The private cornfield north of here on the end of Barbed Wire Road is probably at least 10 foot in elevation change difference. Mm-hmm. And as you look coming down the road, you can see how everything falls back toward the bluff, toward the Opine River.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think that helps people understand, what we're having to deal with, and being here today and seeing the corn. You got the corn in some areas, you got your moist soils, and knowing that there's a lot to deal with, a lot of different things that can happen. And it's not the prime ag land that you think of outside of the areas.
And let me just say another thing about it. So corn undoubtedly produces a lot of energy for those ducks. One kernel of corn is a lot of energy for a duck, right? And they got to eat a lot of seeds for these moist soil seeds to get the same energy per kernel of corn. Mm-hmm. So they're really good. Corn is a good high energy food, but what it doesn't have is all those other nutrients that the bird needs. I mean, the bird comes down to Tennessee. They got a job to do. They're not down here on vacation. They got a job to do. They're molting feathers, right? Because they're molting in their breeding plumage. Mm-hmm. They're looking for mates. They're pair bonding. They're trying not to get shot. They're trying to put on fat to migrate back so that they're healthy when they get back to the breeding. So they got a lot going on. So the corn gives them a lot of that energy, but it lacks those other nutrients that it really needs to help with its the things that it's going through in its physiology. It's the feathers and fat and behavioral stuff. And the other thing that moist soil does is it provides a lot of structure under the water that the bugs like, right? Corn doesn't give you that because, like what do you do when you plant corn? You herbicide because you don't want the weeds to compete with your corn. So the moist soil provides a lot of structure for those bugs, which are super important, especially for those later in the season females who are trying to get the protein that they need to start, with the egg production.
Yeah.
So so there's multiple layers of what moist soil does. And I like to think of it as like, corn is kind of a dessert bar, right? Everybody likes to hit the dessert bar.
I ate it first.
Right.
Get that plate first.
Right. So, whereas moist soil's the salad bar. It's like that's the thing that your body really needs. And that's, I like that we're doing more moist soil on our properties because, West Tennessee is a landscape dominated by corn, right? So kind of feel like we have some responsibility to provide the salad bar, provide those.
A lot of people don't realize it until you've been up in a plane and you're flying over and you're doing like a waterfowl count and you actually see how many cornfields are on the landscape.
Right. Yeah. So,
well, let's transition. That was a good conversation. Let's transition into the Mississippi Flyway. I know you hear that term, you hear that thrown out there, and we're a member of that, right, Jamie?
Yeah. All right. So flyways in general. So, ducks have certain paths, migratory paths coming from the north down to the south that they follow. And if you sort of look at them, they are broken down into 4 big regional systems that these birds follow on migration. And so, in the realm of management, we looked at that and said, hey, we need to make some administrative flyways. So when we talk about the flyways, there's a couple of different ways you can think about it. One is the path that the bird travels, or the administrative the administrative boundary of all the states that need to work together. Like I was saying earlier,
Right. Yep.
That's what I do. So so Tennessee is part of the administrative Mississippi Flyway, but also the biological Mississippi Flyway. And so the Flyway is a collective of waterfowl biologists all along for the Mississippi Flyway, particularly the Mississippi River. We let Ohio play and we let Michigan play too. And then a couple of the Canadian provinces because they actually grow our birds, even though they don't touch the Mississippi. But, we got a little bit of Ontario, Saskatchewan, a little bit, Manitoba. So everybody gets together, all those biologists get together twice a year and we talk business. We're talking population surveys. We're talking, what do we need to do to write letters for support and legislation? So there's 2 levels. There's a technical level. That's the state biologist. And then there's always a boss, right? So there's the administration level. So that's usually like a chief of wildlife is the council member. So the technical members make recommendations to the council members and say, hey, this is what we're seeing with the science. This is what we think we need to do as far as recommendations to the Fish and Wildlife Service about, seasons or surveys and things like that. And then the council gives these recommendations to the Fish and Wildlife Service. So it's sort of like a cooperative sort of system where all of the states working together to try to work with the federal government, because the federal government is really the ultimate stewards of migratory birds, because we're in these treaties with other countries to protect birds. And so in order for us to have duck seasons, we need to work through the federal system because they're the stewards of this international migratory resource. Yeah. So it's, the flyway system is set up to do that, is to, states have representation on what's going on with this resource.
Well, and you mentioned you threw out their waterfowl counts, and we can jump into that too. But the North American Waterfowl Management Plan, we've been a part of that for 32 years, I believe it is. Yeah. But that they deal with population, habitat, and even dealing with the people that, so I guess the waterfowl counts and some of the work that we do contributes to this plan. So let's kind of tie those things together and talk about how we do those counts and other things.
Yeah, sure. So the North American Waterfowl Management Plan, it was born in like 1986 or something. I can't remember the exact date, but it was we were starting to see crashes in populations. And we said, look, this is an international resource. We all need to get on board. We all need to be playing on the same playing field. We all need to be on the same field playing this. Everybody can't be doing different things.
Right.
And so this plan was developed thinking at a continental scale, thinking all of Canada, all of the United States, and Mexico.
Yeah.
How do we all look at waterfowl populations together and manage it together? And initially it was ducks and habitat. You got to have habitat in order to have ducks, and we want to make lots of ducks. We want to have more ducks than what we have now. So they set these population levels, and they, put out the, objectives for what we needed to put on the ground as far as habitat in order to grow the number of ducks that we wanted to see. And so that gave birth to joint ventures. I don't know if everybody's heard of joint ventures, but they're these, geographic sort of conglomerations of states and agencies that deliver habitat for ducks, for other birds, right? So they're doing that habitat work. Surveys that we do feed into how are our populations doing. And it wasn't until sometime right around 2012, I think, is when they introduced, might have been 2008, I can't remember. They introduced the people aspect because it was recognized that we can't do everything we need to do without the support of people. So that's outreach. It's like we need hunters to support us financially. Well, we need non-hunters to support us financially because wetlands, they provide so many services to people that they don't even realize.
Not just game birds,
right? Not just hunting, and it's not just for going out and bird watching. Wetlands prevent flooding. You got wetlands. Wetlands will fill up with water, and they're like the sponge of the earth, and they will soak up flood water. So flood retention. They filter pollutants out of water. So water drains into the wetland before it goes in the aquifer. It filters the stuff out of the water that you don't want in the aquifer. There's just all kinds of other services. People just love them just to know that they're there, right? Because the frogs got a place to be. The turtles got a place to be, right? So there's all these services that's why we need to bring the people in to support all this. And so that's how all of this sort of fits into this original plan. We want lots of ducks. Here's how we got to do it. We got to get everybody on board. We got to put lots of habitat on the ground. We just got to do what's good for the ducks.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I want to get into the waterfowl counts because I think it's cool how those are conducted. Y'all are flying over these properties and counting, and I know that. Yeah,
we have. There's so many different surveys that we got going on. So there's always this annual in May. They do the breeding bird population survey, and there's transects that have been established up in Canada and the northern part of the prairies of the United States. And they're flown every single year.
Right.
And that's where they're counting breeding birds. They're counting like, oh, there's a pair. Like they're literally counting all these birds. And that's, they have some formula that they put into that sort of extrapolates to this is the amount of area that we surveyed versus the amount of area that actually is. They count the number of ponds out there to put into the analysis to figure out how much habitat there is and how many birds we're going to produce. And so that's like the big main one. That's the one that we use really for setting seasons. Right. There's other surveys that happen. Like in Tennessee, we do refuge counts. Like Josh does refuge counts at White Lake. We start in the middle of November, we go to about the middle of February, and every 2 weeks, it's like the 1st and the 15th of the month, or the 15th and the 30th, however you guys want to do it. But they go and count all the birds on the refuges, and it just it helps us know what's in town, how much is in town. It gives Josh an indication of like, how's his management doing? Do we have lots of birds on the property? Like, is it up? Is it down from last year? So that helps inform it. And then there's a midwinter survey that we participate in, and it's a larger scale. There's about 4 or 5 days in the early January where everybody up and down the flyway counts all their birds at the same time. So we know that if we're counting birds on the same day as Louisiana, we're counting our birds. Louise is counting their birds. We're not counting each other's birds.
Yeah.
Because we're doing it all at the same time. So, and that all just kind of fits together in like, what are the numbers looking like, versus, what we saw in the breeding, what we're seeing in the winter. Are we seeing them come to the same area? We're looking at trends up and down, that sort of stuff. So it kind of just all that information feeds the machine for what we need to do to manage these birds.
Well, and how does the banding fall into some of it?
Oh yeah. So banding is it's another animal.
Yeah.
It's another
different time of year.
Yeah.
Right?
It's another piece that feeds the machine. It doesn't even have to be a different time of the year because we are starting to do a lot more winter banding. Most of the banding that we've done historically has always been in summer. We've always done like breeding birds and molting birds in the summertime. Here in Tennessee, we banned wood ducks and we banned Canada geese. And a lot of that has to do to inform some of those early seasons we have. Okay. So like, we got that wood duck, that September wood duck season because people did the work and banded the birds, and we started shooting them in September because we were like, we're shooting our own birds. We're not shooting Michigan's birds at that time. We're not shooting we're shooting Tennessee birds. And so in order to figure that out, you put bands out on a lot of birds. When people report those bands after they shoot them, you know that those were our birds. And so that's a lot of like the banding that we do in the summertime. It's the same thing for the geese. We're shooting that's why we have September seasons, because we know we're shooting our geese. So that informs hunt management, harvest management. That information also feeds back into what we know about, at the end of the year, what was harvested. That's how we get our harvest. It's part of how we get our harvest numbers.
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of data that feeds the information that we need to know to properly manage these populations.
Well, we covered a lot. We're about to run out of time. We've hit a bunch of stuff, and I don't want to miss anything. But Amy, you had a note here.
Yeah, I did bring a richer note because I wanted to get to it. One thing Josh has here that is exceptional and it has a long-standing history is the dove field and his youth dove hunt. And I definitely want to get that included in here. How many acres do you have this year?
So this year we've got just under 70, between 70 and 77 acres of sunflowers. And that'll be on September the 1st. And our local chapter of the NWTF, the Forked Deer Longbeards, will be here to provide lunch for the kids. And that'll start probably around 10:30, 11 o'clock. And we'll try to get the kids out on the field and in place by 12. They, I believe they're going to give away a gun this year. And we'll have a couple other sponsors that'll show up and give away prizes to the kids.
It truly is a special youth event that we have in our West Tennessee WMAs. And if you've never been here, you really need to bring your youth out. He always has a good hunt. It's a quality feed for all you that like to eat good feed. And it really is just family-centered, focused, and oriented.
Yeah, such a great event.
Yeah,
you guys do a good job with that, Josh.
Yeah, that's cool. It's important to get those young guys out there, young guys and gals. Yep, I got there. Young guys and gals. Get them out there and introduce them to the outdoors. And if you've kind of fallen off from the outdoors, get back out there. There's a lot to enjoy and get into. So fish, hunt, whatever it may be. But appreciate you guys being here and the work y'all do for the agency. All three of you. It's a good team here, and appreciate y'all.
Again, Josh, kudos to your crew for everything that you all pulled off for today, because it's exceptional what y'all have done.
Thank you. Yeah, the festival's great, man. You guys did a good job.
Yeah. It's been fun. I think we've learned a lot here today. Good stuff. Thank you, Jamie, for that background. And Josh, thank you for everything y'all do here on the property. And it's been fun. Keep listening, keep watching, keep tuning in. This is Tennessee WildCast. You can subscribe on your favorite podcasting app or find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. We're out there everywhere. So follow us, share us, and keep coming back.
Stay connected with TWRA by visiting our website at tnwildlife.org and follow us on Facebook, X, and Instagram. Join us as we celebrate 75 years of conservation in our great state. You can invest in Tennessee's wildlife future by purchasing a license at GoOutdoorsTennessee.com. That's GoOutdoorsTennessee.com.